'Tis the season to be scared. Welcome to Laser Views. And happy holidays. It's that time of the year again, and if you are like me, you may not be too interested in diving into all the jolly of the season. You might want to seek out some horror movies to spice Christmas up a bit, or whatever you're celebrating. Not another Christmas family holiday movie. No, something darker, something scarier, something gorier, perhaps? I mean, that's probably what you're looking for, right? Otherwise you wouldn't really be here. And I have one for you today. I can't really say it's a recommendation. It's sadly not a good one. I had my bets on it. I don't know why I expected this to be a good one. It's not really a good sign that I've never heard about it before. I will make a video about it anyway, so you can at least not waste your time watching this movie. And to make it up for you, to not just give you a bad recommendation or a warning, so to speak, I will, at the end of this video, mention a movie that I do like, that I would recommend, that will be a thrill for the season. So if you bear with me, if you stay with me to hear about this movie you probably shouldn't watch, I'll have a little surprise for you, a little gift for you. Of course, you could just skip to it right away, but what would be the fun of that? You can't have only pleasure, you need a little pain before the pleasure, right? That's not really a good thing to live by, but I guess that's what I live by. No, I guess I'm a sadomasochist. So last year I did cover an entire franchise. I don't have the time for that. I'm currently working on the Terminator franchise, and after being ill for 6 weeks on top of an operation that took me out for about 4 weeks, I'm behind schedule, so I have no time for a whole Christmas franchise, horror franchise. But if you want one, you can watch my video or videos on Silent Night, Deadly Night, the franchise. I did cover all of the movies, all the 6 movies and that franchise. You can watch my video here or wherever it will pop up. You can also just select specific movies from it. Of course, you may have heard of Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. That's one of the more infamous movies in the franchise. And I would say the best movie in the franchise, not as so bad it's good, but actually a genuinely good movie, is Silent Night, Deadly Night 4, The Incantation. That is a movie I will recommend you as well. So I gave you a little treat here to begin with. I'll now talk about a bad movie, and then at the end of it, I'll give you another treat. So let's get started. So as the title of this video probably already gave away, this video will be about P2 from 2007. Already quite a bad title, and it doesn't really tell you that it's taking place during Christmas, but it is. It is a Christmas horror, it is a Christmas thriller, and the reason why it's called P2 is because it takes place in a parking garage. How exciting. Actually, it's kind of exciting. It's not a bad setting for a movie. So we'll of course start with a little plot summary. I will be spoiling some things. This is not a great movie by any means, and it's also not a terrible movie, so I will talk about some of the things that do work better than other things, but I will not spend too much time on it because honestly it would just be a waste of your and my time if I spend too much time on talking about a movie that is a wet blanket, because that's what this is. So plot summary. This movie starts Christmas Eve. A woman is once again working late at the office. She is finishing up some tasks before heading to her family to celebrate Christmas. And she's one of the last people left at the office building. There are a few other people, as we see, but most people have already gone home. So she's finishing this off, then tries to get into her car. It turns out it won't start. Then she's taken captive. I'm not spoiling much. This happens within 10-15 minutes of the movie, and the rest of the movie is her being a captive. So a bit more about the plot. The person who takes her prisoner is this lonely security guard at the parking garage who has an obsession with her. He seems to be a stalker, but one of the big issues I have with the movie that I will also touch on a bit later is that none of the characters are really fleshed out. They are very bland. No real motivation, no real investment is given into this character. This character is just insane and obsessed with her, and that's all. And we just have to buy that. There's nothing established. From the second we meet him, we know something is wrong, and they don't seem to have any relationship. It seems like she has never even met him before, which does make sense to some extent. I mean, how often do you really meet your security officer at your parking garage? Maybe you wave when you enter and exit, but that's probably about it. So it's not that that aspect of it is not believable, but it's the whole dynamic that is unbelievable. But there are of course these stalker situations where men and women are stalked by people whom they don't know, often with celebrities celebrities, of course, but it can also happen in real life, you know, like in this case, in a workplace. So it's not completely unlikely that it would happen, but it's just, it doesn't make for an exciting movie, at least not the way it's executed, this movie. So anyway, she's captured by this security guard, and they just wrestle throughout the rest of the movie. He has an obsession with her, he stresses he doesn't want to harm her, he does some terrible things to some other people, and she tries to escape. She also tries to play it smart. Actually, she doesn't really play that much into being interested in him, but at least just playing into accepting what he's proposing, that she doesn't want to escape, that she wants to spend time with him, but she's not that docile. They could actually have played a bit more with that, but of course that would primarily happen early in the movie rather than later, and it's also understandable that if you wake up tied up by a psycho, that you freak out instead of immediately playing coy with him or immediately pretending to flirt or pretending that you like him and like the situation. It does make sense that you will not immediately jump to that, but they could still maybe have used a bit more a bit later when she realized that might be the smart thing to do. She doesn't do that. She even continues to make some mistakes where, okay, maybe you shouldn't do that, such as saying his name as it tells her, don't say my name, and he says his name, and don't say my name. And then when she wants him to stop doing something, she continues saying his name, prompting him to really act out. Of course, we don't exactly know if he would have acted out if she hadn't said the name, but it's not that smart in these ways, or at least her character's not that smart. I'm not that smart for pronouncing it that way. Then again, you can maybe understand that in such a situation, she wouldn't be equipped for it. So it's also one of those movies where these flaws, you can't describe them away, you can explain them away, so it's not a huge issue. And that's honestly all there is to say about the plot. So it does play with being in one location. There are 4 floors in this garage, in this parking garage, that they are alternating between, including the main lobby of the building. You only see the character in the lobby once. I don't know why they don't return to it later, but maybe it's locked off or something. One big problem here is actually for a film that takes place in such an isolated location and such a specific location, the geography is not well established. I often didn't understand where they were going, where things were in relation to each other, and maybe I was not fully attentive the whole time, because it was only towards the ending I realized where the security office was located. For some reason I thought it was located back on the same floor, or at least some other floor of the building, but no, it's located right in the parking garage, right at the exit. Which does make sense, but it's just the way it's portrayed. It honestly isn't really conveyed that well. At one point they're walking in a way that makes it seem like they're walking far, and of course they are, because the exit is at P1, I think, and the car is at P2. So the car that doesn't work, And that's why, of course, walking between them, it does seem like maybe they're covering a bigger distance. And I also won't fold it too much at this point. Maybe I'll do it in post, or maybe I will give it some credit in post, because maybe it was just me lacking the attention here. So what is there to say about the movie? With such a simple premise, a lot can go wrong, but a lot can go right as well. The cinematography, the sound design, the acting, none of it is worth mentioning. The female lead is okay, but her character is quite flat. I never got invested in her character. There is some backstory with that she is so overworked, so focused on the career that she doesn't have the time to date, and that she neglects her family, but it's not used a lot in the movie, and that's really all we get to hear about her. We don't get a strong sense of who she is, or why we should really care about her, other than she's of course a victim of a crime. And another issue is that from the very beginning, she's very keen on using force to escape the situation. That may not be bad, but it does mean that you don't have this dynamic where, again, you could have a character who is more nervous, more reluctant to put up resistance in the movie, and then turn into someone who puts up an increasing amount of resistance, including maybe using deadly force. Whereas when you have a character who already in the beginning is rather quick to use weapons and cause harm, it is understandable that you have a character like that, but it does mean you don't even get that kind of character progression that could be interesting. Another issue with it, there is no character progression to make a character interesting in this movie. But the focal point is this cat and mouse game. And that cat and mouse game is somewhat well made, somewhat well executed. The problem is you don't care about the characters. As I said, the villain is completely flat. Nothing is done with that character. The people who get killed in the movie, there are 2. One of them I didn't even know we had seen before, and he just gets killed very abruptly. The other, I will give the movie this credit. The other is killed in a very grisly scene where the practical gore effects are superb. That was really, really well done. I was completely zoned out of the movie when this came up. I think it's 40 minutes into the movie 40, maybe 50. And then I see that these effects and I think, okay, maybe this movie will actually get good. And there are some good ideas. Some of the ideas they have for how can they use this facility, this small location, to have a cat and mouse game. So she uses an elevator to try and hide in and wait out for cops to arrive or maybe for help to arrive. And he directly flushes her out. There are some of these really good ideas. And of course, the wear and tear of them fighting each other also works quite well during the movie. It does have some good ideas with, of course, this is taking place during Christmas. So there are no people in the streets and it's very difficult for her to get help. It is one of those movies where you often understand her motivation, but at the same time, it's also a bit annoying. But it's difficult to be too annoyed because most of it is understandable. As I said, even though the characters are flat and boring and nothing is really done to make you invest in the movie, it's also not one where it's done so horribly wrong that it ruins it for you. So it is in that very middle field that it had a lot of potential, because this is something I could see working, but it would work better with a different cast, different direction, different sound design, different cinematography, because all of this is just so bare bones, so mediocre at best, that the overall product just isn't really exciting. There isn't really any reason why I could recommend this to you. So I wouldn't mind seeing the exact same premise being made by another person. Not really a remake, I think it would have to be a bit different because, again, the whole dynamic with the antagonist, it really doesn't work. At least that's one of the big issues I had with the movie, that really needed him to be better developed. He's just insane for the sake of being insane. And I know this, I'm saying this with caution. He does feel like an incel autist to some extent. You know, like a movie autist. Not a real life autist, but like a cliche of an evil autist as we would get them in the early mid-2000s. And seeing this movie with more modern eyes, it does feel a bit wrong in that way. I apologize to anyone who might be offended by this. I am meaning this to give you an idea of how he's being played, how his role does really work, because it's just crazy, weirdo, sad, pathetic guy who is sad, pathetic weirdo because he's a sad, pathetic weirdo, but also a murderous weirdo. So it has these things, and then they just don't tie things together well enough. And I think I've talked enough about this movie. I said everything there's to say. It's not the worst movie in the world, and I can see why it might be mildly entertaining enough for you if you just want to see the novelty of a movie taking place in a parking garage at Christmas. It's not the worst movie you can watch. So again, if you really like cat and mouse movies, people being stalked or hunted in an enclosed location, you could do worse than this movie, but you definitely could also do better. So this is not a recommendation, but it's also not a warning for you to stay the hell away from this movie. It is just too meh. It's too meh. It's so meh that I can't recommend it and I can't hate it, which kind of is the worst category. You can't even hate watch this movie. It's too good to be hate watched, but also so uninspired. I guess that's the word I want to use. Every single decision seems to be the easiest decision you could take. There isn't really much creative input in it, aside from a few ideas, but even then, everything is just, it feels very written, but written just to make a quick buck. It doesn't feel like any heart was put into the movie, which is probably wrong, but that's how it feels.
So, this is what you ended up with?
At the beginning of this video, I promised you that if you stayed with me through my review of P2, I would give you a little gift at the end of this video. And here we are. Elves from 1989. This is one of those so bad it's good movies. This movie is hilariously bad. It is bonkers. It's not bad in the exact same vein as Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. That movie has awful acting and a terrible script. But it's especially the awful acting and awful decisions in that regard. So also in terms of the pacing and how much it steals from the first Silent Night, Deadly Night movie that makes that movie a really, really good bad movie. This movie is bad in terms of the story. The acting is also awful. The script, the dialogue is quite bad. Not as bad, but bad. But it's also one of those bonkers movies where you have no idea where it will go next. It just keeps escalating in how wild, how crazy the story gets. I will not spoil much for you. I will say a few things that might pique your interest. It has Dan Haggerty playing a drifter Santa Claus, one of the good guys in the movie. So if you want to see a Dan Haggerty, probably drunk while filming it, if you want to see him playing a Santa Claus in a horror movie with elves in it, killer elves, this is the movie for you. Also, the elves are Nazis.
Their mission to mate with a virgin and conquer the world as a pint-sized master racer.
The rest of the film, I think you should discover by yourself. It is brilliant. It is wonderful. I did not discover this myself. I found other YouTube channels that talked about this movie. So if you want someone talking about it in greater detail than I do, then feel free to check out one of these videos. But honestly, I think you should go into this blind. You shouldn't have all the good moments spoiled, because this movie is brilliant. It is not the best of the best of the best of the worst. It's not a 5 out of 5 of the best of the worst. But it's a solid 4, I think, maybe even a bit better. It is a bit too boring at times, but when this movie gets started, when this really starts picking up pace, this movie is insane. It's absolutely insane. And it's wild that it was ever written. It's wild that anyone thought this was a good idea. It's one of those movies. It is marvelous. And I think you should watch it. And I think you should watch it without knowing more about it. So that's why I will end my video here.
If I known you'd sink this low.
Thank you for sticking with me. I hope you might want to check out my videos on Silent Night, Deadly Night. Not maybe all of them, but some of the Silent Night, Deadly Night movies are actually good and recommendable. And also, well, maybe you'll figure out if you want to see P2 or not. Again, not the best movie, not the worst. But make sure to see Elves, at least if you like good bad movies, because this is one spectacularly good bad flick. Happy holidays, enjoy your season, enjoy your time with whoever you're spending your time with, and if you want, leave a comment if I missed out something, especially if there are other good holiday movies you could recommend. And I don't know, you can subscribe. Of course, I'm not going to talk more about seasonal holiday movies this year, but if it sounds interesting to hear me cover the Terminator franchise, well, maybe there's something to look forward to. So, goodbye. Bye. Ciao.